Amalfitan coast, which winds suggestively from Positano to Vietri sul Mare, is set back along a twisting stretch of coast. Unequal for its beauty, this panoramic stretch of road is known worldwide. These intricate winding curves allow one to admire the fascinating and quiet scenery. Steep cliffs reaching down in all their natural beauty seem to almost spread out and then disappear to reveal the magic of small shiny sandy beaches. Often the erosion during the ages, due to the atmosphere, have carved the rocks and cliffs, remodeling them into the strange and fantastic forms that they have today. Over the centuries, however, the necessity in life has given way to changes in the steep valleys, and through the patient work of man, who has known not only to appreciate the wonders of this landscape, has also delicately been able to edge his way in and add to this paradise. Cultivating with great care the vineyards and olive and lemon groves among the prettiest of gardens have all added to the natural splendor. In fact, it would seem as if jewels had been placed at the feet of these famous ancient mountains, which rise out like centerpieces among the small villages, all individual in their own way. Tourists are forever being drawn to this part of the world, and are forever marveled not only at the clear blue skies and seas, the healthy climate, but also for the richness of the history and the memory still in existence, thanks to the many works of art. So let us prepare ourselves to travel through and admire this marvelous corner of the world, which, to say the least, is enchanting and full of wonder. Positano, coming from Sorrento, is one of our first pearls on this famous tour. A small enchanting town, very sought after as a holiday resort among the Italian elite, is situated in a breathtaking position, with its picturesque houses packed into a steep inlet, seem to almost overlap one another as far down as the sandy coastline, is an unbelievable sight. One of the other most characteristic points is the intricate network of small streets and endless steps, which turn and wind to take you to the squares and main streets, all freshly painted white or even pink or orange, the houses and shops. Sometimes they give way to a glimpse of greenery, maybe a terrace full of flowers or a patch of land intensively cultivated with vegetables. The origins of Positano go back a long way, and it is believed that it was founded by the ancient inhabitants of Paestum, from which it derived its name. Instead, others claim, and probably more correctly, that its name was given by the Posidi, who wanted it called Posidonia. It is well known that the ancient Romans possessed land and villas in this area, and today these names are still used. Due to the flourishing marine republic, even Positano developed its commercial shipping, competing with its rival Amalfi to gain power in this field. The Saracen invasion in past centuries were numerous, and for this reason many towers were built along the coastline as points of lookout. The Saracen invasion in past centuries were numerous, and for this reason many towers were built along the coastline as points of lookout. The three towers that can be seen on the outside of the coast were built by the Spanish Don Pietro di Toledo, and these areas now hold the names of Sponda, Trasita and Fornillo. Once a small, simple and picturesque fishing village, Positano is today, as previously mentioned, an extremely sought-after holiday resort, well organized and equipped, not only for the famous and rich, but for all tourists, which now play a big part in Positano's economy. Positano alleyways, full of colorful boutiques, is renowned for its fashion, which is recognized worldwide under the name of Moda Positano, in other words, Positano fashion. Situated in the heart of the coast, Preano is one of the best-known towns thanks to its inviting position that looks out to sea and yet is in contact with simple and uncontaminated nature. Once known as Plagianum and also well noted for its local industry, namely the manufacture of silk and cotton, it was above all an active and delightful fishing village. It became a summer residence for the Doge when Amalfi was a republic, and step by step it has developed into a holiday resort. It certainly has much to offer. For example, the climate is mild and therefore healthy, the sea is limpid and inviting, the people are warm and hospitable, and there is the possibility to find true moments of relax. Not forgetting the picturesque setting, mountainside decked with terraces of lemon and olive groves, and neat, tidy white houses dotted about. All this has increased the popularity of Praiano as being a pleasant holiday spot. Further down, towards the actual seaside, where cliffs and rocks overlook and reflect into the clear transparent sea, we can find a remote and silent beach, and further along still an astonishing Saracen tower, which still today seems to have its noble task of guarding the local area from harm. Almost joined with Preano and Vettiga Maggiore, this tranquil hideaway is idyllic for getting away from it all. An old saying once said, if you want to live well and healthy, then you should spend the morning at Vettiga and the evening in Preano. Furore is an inspiring, well-built-up area spread upon the sides of Mount Lattari, along cliffs overhanging the sea. This town is typical of the other face of this spectacular coastline. This special hillside position is halfway along our route, and as ever the scenery is breathtaking. The countryside, full of color, seems to be almost unending, and it slowly blends into the horizon. Unique and solitary, Furore has remained much the same through the centuries, tranquil and almost divided from its neighbors. It has allowed the hard-working locals to continue undisturbed with their local agriculture and sheep farming. Originally, the name of Furore was Terra Furoris, land of fury, and this is certainly a good description when there is a storm, and the waves beat against the cliffs and rocks which rise up like pillars out of the sea, causing a deafening violence and frightening rage at the entrance of the fjord. This indescribable and absolutely unique fjord, or natural port should we say, many years ago led the way to the flourishing business of the paper mill industry, thanks to the natural force of the waters. Although today the mills are no longer in existence, we can still admire this angle of paradise, set back under a large bridge, like an old painting, where the sea rushes in to greet the fishermen and the tiny white houses which seem suspended by the green vegetation of the cliffside. The world is made up of steps, so is often said, but this is an actual fact and not a proverb here at Conca dei Marini, or sometime called Conca dei Gradini, meaning Conca of the Steps. This breathtaking area is full of simple delight which really penetrates the soul. Situated between the historic Amalfi and Positano, this beautiful area seems to break up the ruggedness of the sloping cliffs down as far as the Azzurro del Tirreno, the blue of the Tyrrhene Sea. Picturesque houses with their typically Mediterranean rounded roofs scattered like sheaves on the hillside are all enclosed by gardens full of flowers and vegetables. Every now and then you can see an antique church poking up, proud to show its bell. The perfume of the lemons prevails the atmosphere, and the wonderful olive groves and heavy carubi trees all add to the fantastic dense vegetation. The enchanting seascape, with its small chapel dedicated to the Madonna della Neve, set in among the cliffs and whitewashed villas, dominates and embraces a beach, where a limpid sea delicately washes the shores of smooth shiny pebbles. It would be hard to find anywhere with all the grace and beauty of Conca, which seems to have blended every aspect of nature so well together. A little further along is the peninsula of Capo di Conca, stretching out like the arm of a goddess that points out to the richness of the surroundings. At the highest point of this rocky limb sits a tower from the 16th century, an ancient watch point. Further along still, in a semicircle hidden away, is the Grotto dello Smeraldo, the Green Emerald Cave, a marvelous combination of light and rocks, noted throughout for its dreamful beauty. This cave is a cavity which has come about due to the erosion of the sea, which has not only eaten under the cliffs, but has left an impressive work of art. The cave takes its name from the Emerald Sea, which is so intense it astonishes you when you enter it. So do the stalactites and stalagmites. You can only let your imagination carry you away when you find yourself in the midst of these fantastic and almost unreal surroundings. Castled on another rock, rising from the sea, in all its glory, lies the convent of Santa Rosa, which dates back to the 17th century. Passing over the threshold of this splendid monument to times long gone, there is a profound sense of peace and quiet, and even the air that you breathe seems holy. A silence which engrosses you, full of unidentifiable voices, seem to get closer and grip the spirit. Long corridors, which have been testimonies to the history and poverty, have probably only heard the words of prayers. But what has really eternally brought fame and kept the memory of this truly holy and mystical place was the invention of the well-known sfogliatella, a triumph in the world of cakes, carefully produced by those wonderful hands of the nuns who lived in this convent at the beginning of the 18th century, on the occasion of the feast of their patron saint, Saint Rosa. The town of Amalfi that gives its name to this prestigious limb of coast has been defined as divine. It is one of the most well-known and sought-after resorts in the whole of southern Italy. It gained its fame due to the superb climate, which has always been exceptional, to the prize-worthy monuments rich in history, and to the splendor of ancient Rome, but above all to the extraordinary way which it has opened its doors to tourism. Prized by many poets and illustrated writers of all periods and nations, it's difficult to find the appropriate words to really describe and give justice to the beauty of the scenery of this enchanting place. Wherever you turn in every corner, along every alleyway, you cannot help but marvel at the way Amalfi has been constructed. The houses, which seem to be grappling onto the sides of the rough mountain, work their way down into a unique disorder into the Valle dei Mulini. During the centuries, however, the sea has slowly forced its way in and taken great part of the old city. This is another reason why the houses have accumulated one on top of the other. Even the streets and stairways have been tightly woven in among the houses, so not to waste so much space, making it possible to live in this inaccessible place. According to the legends, Amalfi was founded in the 4th century AD. However, we only start to find tracks of Amalfi when we refer to the official documents which begin around the 8th century AD. However, Amalfi did not acquire fame and fortune until the 10th and 11th century, when it flourished considerably thanks to its commercial potential, allowing it to be able to trade with the Oriental countries. It was from here that splendid ships sailed to buy items such as silk, perfumes, spices, carpets, and precious stones, all of which were then brought back to the Italian ports, unloaded and then divided up to be redistributed throughout the Italian and European markets. The trade was so significant that it was necessary to put into effect the Amalfitan Maritime Tabloids, which were a collection of maritime laws. These are now held on show at the Civil Museum at the Town Hall in Amalfi. Composed of 66 chapters, 21 of which are in Latin, these laws specified the codes of practice within the immediate waters and protected the rights of the Republican trading ships. These codes soon became law for the whole of the Mediterranean Sea, and were also a part of the universal maritime laws to come. Another notable event that took place in Amalfi was the invention of the compass by Flavio Gioia. We can find a splendid monument in his honor standing facing the sea. Obviously, the invention of the compass brought a great change in navigation. The sailors could sail out into the open sea without fear of becoming lost. It also made sailing time for the ships a great deal quicker. Passing on to another monument of Amalfi, and that is the Cathedral of St. Andrews, its magnificent dome can be seen towering above all, like a lord over the manor. This wonderful piece of architecture, which has obviously been restored during the centuries, was begun in the year 800 and completed during the government of the Doge Manson II. Its stairways, which consists of 57 steps, reach down the main square, and it's almost like a stage backed by an immense scenery. Still intact in its original state is the bell in the bell tower. There are also two magnificent main doors, forged in bronze at Bisanzio in 1066. Within the great walls are housed many great works of art, and even some sculptures by Bernini and Fontana. In the annex of the cathedral is the Chiostro del Paradiso, that means actually the Cloister of Paradise. Constructed in the 12th century, it has a splendid series of Arabian arches. This bright cloister, with its touch of greenery, has a calm and peaceful, almost mystic atmosphere. It was here that the Bishop Filippo Augusto said that the remains of the noblemen of Amalfi should be laid to rest. Further along, once facing the sea, we can find what remains of the Arsenale. In fact, it was here, during these glorious moments in the Amalfitan history, that the colossal galleons were built, destined to sail the seas to find new commercial bases in the east. Some of these galleons were so long that they were propelled by as many as 116 oars. Unfortunately, as already mentioned, the sea has swallowed up much of what was built along the original coastline. However, we can still see and admire a part of where these wonderful ships were constructed. To the north of the city, we find the Vallone dei Mulini, the Valley of the Mills. This valley was once the center of the paper mills, and we can still see the ruins, probably the oldest in Europe, which until the second half of the last century still produced the paper for this thriving business. Even today, this paper is highly requested and still produced in Amalfi. The mills were driven by the strong rushing river Canneto. This received its supply of water from the natural spring in the mountains, which flowed down, forming waterfalls. There are two ex-convents which still preserve their beautiful cloisters, dating back to the 13th century. However, these convents have now become well-known hotels, namely the Luna and the Cappuccini. Wonderfully situated, these hotels have breathtaking views and are also idyllic places to spend Christmas and especially New Year's Eve, one of the feast days still celebrated in grand style. Many people come from all over to hear the local folk groups play. and to see the spectacular show of fireworks at midnight on New Year's Eve. The memories of the past are still strongly revived by many splendid processions and feast days. One of the most capturing is that of the regatta, when the four maritime cities, Amalfi, Genoa, Pisa and Venice, all meet up to compete against one another in a boat race. This long-standing tradition represents the once four maritime republics of Italy, and as every town has to take turns in hosting this race, every 4 years, even Amalfi plays its memorable past. This very moving event, with the sound of tambourines, trumpets and sirens, all build up the atmosphere, and the costumes, designed and made faithfully to the period which they represent, are to say the least impressive. The actual boat race consists of a course from Capo di Conca to the Darsena, the main beach in Amalfi. Each of the city has 8 rowers and a coxswain, and the galleons which they use in the race are also very typical of what were actually used centuries ago. Each city has its own color. Amalfi is blue, Genoa is white, Pisa is red and Venice green. At the head of each galleon is a figurehead. Amalfi is a horse, Genoa is a dragon, Pisa is a hawk, and Venice a lion. The winners of the race receive a trophy made in silver and gold, representing the boat race. This trophy is then kept by the city that wins in the town hall. As this race has become so popular again in later years, it has given rise to another national lottery in Italy, with prizes of extreme value. Situated on a very narrow stretch of land, very near the sea, at the opening of the Valle del Dragone, meaning Valley of the Dragon, Atrani is a very picturesque small town, built among the cliffs and rocks. It seems almost to be embraced by its surroundings. In the past, Atrani was very united with its neighbor Amalfi, politically and economically. It was the village preferred by the noblemen and doges of Amalfi, and it was actually here, in a local church, that they were elected to their public posts, and also the funeral services of the already mentioned were carried out. This church, namely Saint Salvatore di Bireto or Berretto, which means cap or beret, is so called because during the elections of the doges centuries ago, they had to wear a special cap called a duke's cap. Probably founded in the 10th century, but almost completely transformed over the centuries, this church still possesses its bronze doors, which were made in Constantinople in 1087 and are of extreme interest. Also very interesting is the church of Santa Maria Maddalena, which has a very dominating position looking out over the Gulf. Built in the year 1274, but several times restored over the centuries, this church has an elegant Baroque-styled front, a magnificent mosaic inlaid dome, and an interesting bell tower, which is square-shaped, with octagonal calls and is 2 floors high. Small but gracious, the enchanting bathing area is a long way from the everyday hustle. one of the most spacious areas along the Gulf, situated 350 meters above sea level, which also divides the Valle del Dragone from that of the Regina, sits Ravello. Considered as one of the most precious gems of the coast, it is reached by a very steep winding road, which seems to follow the movements of the mountains overlooking the sea. Certainly a breathtaking ride. Ravello glories its tranquil walks among its splendid gardens and very elegant surroundings. Many famous people have stayed in Ravello, enjoying its richness in art and history, and it has been the inspiration to many writers and artists over the centuries. Ravello dates back as far as the year 500, and although it established in medieval times, it only became important during the 12th and 13th century, when although still tied to the prospering neighbor Amalfi, it was able to develop in such a way as to begin expanding in every field. With the rising population and social life, we can easily see that Ravello enjoyed a very noble atmosphere. The houses and villas are clear signs of the prosperous tradesmen that once lived here. Even the Duomo, or cathedral, named after the martyr San Pantaleone, the patron saint of the town, was fully restored in the 12th century. The bronze doors, which date back to the year 1179, are of great interest. Commissioned by Barisano da Trani, they are made up of 54 panels, which tell the story of various saints. Inside, there are 3 aisles, the columns of which are from the Roman era. Also well conserved is a splendid pergamo in marble and finely worked and decorated with the mosaic. This actually dates back to the 13th century. One of the most splendid examples of villas of Ravello is Villa Ruffolo, which takes its name from the noble family which once owned it and lived here. This villa dates back to the 13th century and was built in the Sicilian Arab style. Situated in one of the most fascinating and glorious positions of Ravello, it boasts a splendid view of the coastline. It was here that the well-known writer Boccaccio based his novel Decamerone, and the principal character of this book was actually Landolfo Ruffolo. This villa is magnificent. From its entrance, which is a tower from the 14th century, to the courtyard, lined with trees, which conduct one through the gardens where Richard Wagner, who in 1878 drew his inspiration for one of his most beautiful compositions, Parsifal. Still today, in honor of this great musician, every year during the summer, concerts are held in these impressive and most appropriate settings. Many Italian and foreign symphonic orchestras take part in this occasion, called the Festival of Ravello. Another important villa of Ravello is the Villa Cimbrone, another landmark in this town of elegance. Built in the medieval style, this villa is very gracious and again has splendid gardens filled with statues and busts. There is also a magnificent terrace which seems to almost reach out to embrace and capture the full beauty of the panorama. Almost hidden away in an inlet, quiet and unpretending, lies Minori, named after the ancient Roman queen Minor. This town appears to wear its pretty countryside like a crown. Its small white houses again built up on terraces and up into the surroundings decked by orange and lemon groves. At the feet of this town is a small comfortable beach with clear blue waters, and the climate is excellent. In fact, Minori has been a very popular holiday resort for many decades. Villa Romana, the Roman villa, which goes back to the time of Augusto, consists of three main arches, adorned by nymphs, together with a complex of large rooms. Well worth noting are the vast salons with their high vaults, domed ceilings, adorned with all manner of decoration and frescoes. Here we also find a pool and most probably the first type of central heating system, which at the time supplied hot water throughout the building. This just shows how advanced the Romans actually were in their technology. After the promontory from Minori, we find Maiori, in all its antique and modern splendor, blended together, another gem along this splendid coastline. Its name was derived from that of the ancient queen, Maior. This town, which originates from the valley of Tramonti, reaches down towards a vast expanse of sandy beach. Like many of its neighbors, Maiori was strongly tied to Amalfi centuries ago for its political and economical situation. However, over the years it has developed, and thanks to its dimensions and amenities it has become a very busy tourist spot. The little white houses, together with rich vineyards and orange and lemon groves, form a very picturesque setting into the mountains like many other towns in this area. Along the coastline there are also many watchtowers, which in the past had the hard trade of protecting the immediate area and Amalfi. The towers called Torre di Milo al Casale, Torre dei Saraceni, Castello di San Nicolò, Baluardo di San Sebastiano, all played a great part in the history of this area, as it was under constant attack by the Saracen invaders, enemies of Amalfi, and also pirates. Erche, a suburb of Maiori, also well known too for its beautiful settings rich in fruits and vineyards, has a wonderful sandy beach, which over the years has earned the name of Spiaggia dei Sogni, the beach of dreams. Here we can find, standing on a cluster of rocks, one of their famous towers, proudly looking out to sea, as if still laboring hard to protect this magnificent coastline. In a small valley appears Cetara, a picturesque fishing village hidden away by the greenery. In ancient times it was actually the last town on the boundary line of the Oriental Amalfitan dominion, a small village with houses dotted everywhere, down to and along its coast. Its main activity has always been fishing. It was probably for this way of life that Cetara actually got its name, as in Latin it means tonnara, an ancient word for fishing net. Still today many fishing boats bring in their catches to the small port here at Cetara, and this local industry is still very important and affluent today. However, in spring and summer this small quaint village also becomes the residence of many tourists who seek the quiet and tranquil getaway. At one end of the sandy coastline extending out is a limb of beach, where a tower still stands, used today as a private residence. This tower was once the base of the Saracens from where they prepared their raids. An eastern port of the Amalfitan coast, Vietri sul Mare, is yet another beautiful component of this already highly prized coastline. Founded around the 8th century, this town opens into the Valle del Torrente Bonea and faces the Gulf of Salerno. It has in all aspects a modern and lively atmosphere, and again is another well sought after holiday post. In fact, tourism is its main source of income. It has developed its seaside resort and activities notably, making use of its ample sandy coast, in front of which rise out of the limpid blue sea two enormous rocks, called the Two Brothers, literally because they are almost identical. Vietri, however, is well known for its long tradition in the art of ceramics. In fact, you might say its fame is worldwide. The traditional designs have been carried down for centuries, without change, thanks to its hard-working and patient inhabitants, who still continue today to produce the ancient-style vases and urns which are so popular. Of course, many other items are made too, and the display of the ceramic shops and their produce all adds to the marvelous display of color which decks the pavements of this very colorful town. After the search of changeable scenery, after glimpse of panoramic views, always the same yet always seeming so different, admirable in all their variation and perspectives, one indelible note remains, and that is certainly the splendor of nature, which is so significant and has been for centuries. Whoever has been able to witness the grandeur and incomparable beauty of this coastline, then they know what emotions unique and intense are to be experienced. But it is the close wovenness of sea and mountains that has made this inseparable duo stand out so suggestively in all its splendor. It's a scenery so brightly varied and brought to life by most lively colors, almost a fairy tale setting, the green backgrounds of the valleys, rich in shrubs and trees, who sink their roots in what little earth covers these rocky mountains, to the superb silk-like colors of the waters, that go from an intense blue to emerald, which reflects through their limpidness the seabed. The whole of the coast, which unites mountains, valleys, perfumes and sun together, with a spectacular, irrepetible fascination, is what strikes one and makes you want to get nearer, to fill the soul with a strange exultation. It is for these reasons that there could be no better title for this coastline than Costiera Divina, the Divine Coast, which speaks for itself.